Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS designates November 10th National EIP Economic Impact Payment Registration Day. COVID Tax Tip 2020-146, October 30th, 2020. The IRS has designated Tuesday, November 10th, National EIP Registration Day. This is part of the agency's final push to encourage everyone who doesn't normally file a tax return to register to receive an economic impact payment. So here's the basic story with the economic impact payment, stimulus payment that's going out in 2020. They actually tied it to the 2020 tax return, which wouldn't be filed till 2021, but they gave the payment out early based on prior year tax returns, which hopefully would have been filed, that being 2019 if they have it, but there was an extension to the 2019 tax return, so then they have to go to 2018 oftentimes. But some people may not have filed 2019 or 2018. Now, if you hadn't filed 2019 or 2018 tax returns, then the IRS does not want you to use the special tool if you're required to file those tax returns. In other words, if you just didn't file them and you're required to file them, then the IRS would like you to file the tax returns in order to process the economic impact payments. However, if you're not required to have a tax return filed because you're below the income threshold, that's who the IRS is looking to at this point in time, because some of those people may not have received an economic impact payment. However, many of them may still have gotten an economic impact payment due to the fact that the IRS then defaulted and went back to other types of things other than tax returns to base the payment on, which would be other government kind of programs that would be paying out money so that they would know it's a taxpayer and they would know the address to send it to, such as Social Security beneficiaries. So in the event of people that don't file a tax return because they're not required to file a tax return due to having taxable income below the threshold, and those that have not yet received an economic impact payment by the IRS knowing about them through some other means, then those people may not have gotten an economic impact payment and could be eligible for it. The IRS is doing the final push here to try to get the economic impact payments out to those individuals. Okay, back to the text. This special event will feature support from IRS partner groups, including those that work with low-income and underserved communities. These groups will help spread the word about the new November 21st deadline and, in some cases, provide special support for people who still need to register for the payments. The IRS has already sent nearly 9 million letters to people who may be eligible for the $1,200 economic impact payments, but don't normally file a tax return. The letters, along with special November 10th event, urge people to use the non-filers enter info here tool. There's a link to that tool here. So if you know anybody that's like in this situation, hasn't received the economic impact payment, is not required to file a tax return, then this is the tool that they would want to use in order to process the information to get the economic impact payment. And if they don't use the tool by this deadline, then they'll have to actually file a tax return if they want to get the economic impact payment. That wouldn't happen until the filing season in 2021 for the 2020 tax returns, and they'd have to file an actual tax return, which is going to be a little bit more difficult for people that don't need to file a tax return. This tool would be easier, simpler to use. While most eligible U.S. taxpayers have automatically received their economic impact payments, others who don't have a filing obligation should use the non-filer tool to register with the IRS to get their money. So that's going to be an important point here. They're looking for the people that don't have a filing obligation. So you haven't received an economic impact payment, or someone hasn't got the economic impact payment. They haven't filed their tax return, which is part of the reasons that they didn't get the economic impact payment, most likely, and they're not required to file the tax return. If you're required to file the tax return, the IRS wants you to file the tax return. If you do this, use this tool instead, or if you use this tool and then try to file, you could quite possibly confuse the IRS, and that usually causes problems, because then, it's a tangled mess of problems with the bureaucratic agency. So you don't want to confuse them like that. If you need to file the tax return, file the tax return. If you don't need to file the tax return, have not yet received an economic impact payment, then this tool could be for you. Typically, this includes people who receive little or no income who should use the non-filer tool. The tool is designed for people with incomes below $24,400 for married couples and $12,200 for singles who could not be claimed as a dependent by someone else. So if you're claimed as a dependent by someone else, then again, not the tool for you, because you're not going to get the economic impact payment. The person that claims you may have gotten a benefit if you're a qualified child, part of that rule would be that you were under the age of 17. If you're not a dependent and your income is below the $12,200 and you're single, or $24,400 and you're married, you may not be required to file the tax return. And if you didn't file the tax return, then you'd want to use the tool possibly. Note, however, that because you're below these thresholds and are not required to file the tax return, you may still want to file the tax return for a few different reasons. One, you might have some earned income for which the employer took withholdings from, that you would get back possibly because you wouldn't owe any taxes if you're under the threshold, so that you get that refunded. Now you might say, well, that's pretty small. Maybe I got like $25 that was withheld. It's not worth me processing the return. But you could also be eligible if you had some earned income for an earned income tax credit or a child tax credit, the refundable credits, quote, refundable credits. Those credits, they can go past the amount of actually owing taxes. So they're not really a tax. They're more of a benefits program. So if you're below those thresholds, then you may not be required to file, but again, you may want to, because those particular credits, the earned income credit and child tax credit, can be substantial, as well as, and you could have any kind of withholdings that could be there as well from any wages that you did have that could be refundable. So anyone using the non-filer tool can speed up the arrival of their payment by choosing to receive it by direct deposit. Those not choosing this option will get a check. So obviously one of the problems here, if you're talking with people that are homeless, then one of the problems is that the government agencies don't have any place to send the check to. And so if you have some system, if you know someone that you can have a system where they have a direct deposit, that's what the bank would like, or that's what the IRS would like most. But of course, if not, then the check will go out. If the check goes out, then of course you need a mailing address for it to go to. People can track the status of their payment using the Get My Payment tool beginning 2 weeks after the register. So the Get My Payment tool can then be helping you to track the payment. There's a link to that tool here. The IRS urges everyone to share this information to help the agency reach as many people before the November 21st deadline.